tuning into public radio. Hi guys. Hi. Hiya.
Hello.
Yes.
Were you the one at the Fox and Hound booth?
Oh, what was the question?
Were you the one at the booth? Because I was wondering if you were one of the voice actors.
Yes, I was the voice of Todd, the fox, in the Fox and the Hound.
No.
Uh-huh.
Wait, what other movies? What are the voice actors?
None. I auditioned for Aladdin. I auditioned for Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lion King. Never did another voice. Never did another voice. I find myself on panels with Pocahontas and Chip and other voice actors. It's great business in Hollywood to be a voiceover artist. You have to build your own studio at home so that it's actually usable in the program. And there are a few actors that got on it early, started doing video games and animated, and it's kind of locked up. There's a small number of voice actors that get most of the work predominantly, so it's kind of hard to crack that into. Just very lucky Disney, much like Peanuts, would cast real kids to play kids. So I was 8 when I played Todd the Fox. Yeah?
Did you ever meet did you ever see a scene where you're just walking where you're voice acting or so, and some stuff was going on and you had to back away or so because it was getting serious? Like someone's being over dramatic or yelling at somebody for the voice actors and stuff, or no?
Oh, I have dubbed on movies. Oftentimes they don't get the dialogue recorded well on set, and so you come later and you do looping, where you redub the dialogue. And I love it. I love trying to sync up my mouth with what's going on. Oftentimes there will be other parts of the movie where they just need a quick voice. Hey, taxi, or something in the background. And I will, if I got time left on the clock, I'll be like, let's do it up. And I'll just throw a bunch of other voices in movies. So in a couple of the movies, I am other voices in there. And I've dubbed over other actors' voices because they weren't the right level of SAG to be able to say something on screen. And it's tough though. I had a very dear friend, Gabe Jarrett, who was Mitch in Real Genius. And he has this great bit in Karate Kid 3. I think he gets beat up in a club real quick, like boom. And he's all excited, he goes to the premiere and they dubbed his voiceover with somebody else. So I know it's terrible. I feel bad for the actors that I might have dubbed their voices, but usually it's on lower budgeted movies and it's pretty loose. On higher budgeted movies, they would get that original actor to do the voice. And they have the money to do that, but it's usually something you just jump in and do for free, for fun. I do remember going to Hanna-Barbera when I was young and auditioning for something in Hanna-Barbera. I didn't get it. But while I could go really high with my voice, like a mouse squeak. Squeak like really high. And they go, oh, that's great, let's record some of it. So they recorded about a minute of me doing these little squeaky mouse sounds. And somewhere there's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon that's got me as the mouse sound, uncredited, unpaid, unbilled. Yeah. But it was cool, it was the same spot that did the Addams Family animated show, Hanna-Barbera. And which was funny, when they did the first animated Addams Family, my grandfather did play Uncle Fester. And you know who played Pugsley? Jodie Foster. Because she had a boy-sounding, rough voice, and so she was Pugsley. Yeah, voice is interesting. Animation's the most expensive thing to make, and it takes the most time. That's why when Netflix was having a little trouble, they're $16 billion in debt. The first thing they cut was animation because it is so costly and it takes so long. Yeah.
I really, that sucks.
It does suck because it's a great way to tell stories,
Which Warner production was low budget? Tales from the Crypt or 21 Jump Street?
Jump Street for sure.
Really?
Yeah, they were shooting in Vancouver. Johnny was gone shooting Crybaby. So they had to have a bunch of episodes with the secondary characters. And I got an Aoki episode. And, but it was fun. I got to work with Deloise and they had the youngest network television director ever, Tucker Gates, 22. He still works today, he's still in touch. Hasn't called me back yet. But, and my mom, who, love my mom, she's like, you know, you're like Johnny Depp, and he's got the same, I'm like, that's sweet, Mom, Johnny Depp's a huge movie star. She goes, no, the reason they cast you in Jump Street, because Johnny wasn't on it, and they needed someone. I'm like, that's nice, Mom, that's really sweet. And I remember I got that, I was driving home from a shoot, Not Quite Human 2, when I was dating Katie Barberi at the time, and she was in Not Quite Human 2. So I went out to location in Phoenix, or Scottsdale, or somewhere in Arizona. And I was gonna head back to LA. I had an audition the next morning, and they said, well, you give our friend Robin Lively a ride. So me and Robin Lively rode all the way back all night, and got home and got to her house at 8. My audition was at 10. And her dad's an actor too, and he had an audition or something. And so we napped in Robin Lively's den for a few hours, and then went completely exhausted to the 21 Jump Street episode. Completely exhausted, just like this. And it was exactly what they wanted. They wanted this dead. I usually I'm quite animated. And then Tales from the Crypt, oh my gosh. To get called for that, and I don't remember auditioning, it was literally just pick Courtney Gaines, DeLuise, Will Wheaton, Jason London, Kevin Dillon, Meredith Salinger, who I went to elementary school with, it was funny. They shot that house was the house from the Bad Chevy Chase, John Candy, Nothing But Trouble. And it's on the poster. Yeah, it's right near Magic Mountain, and it was the shell of a house that they used for movies and stuff. And near that, there's a little, just one-story house, and that's where we did some of the frat scenes where we're in our underwear, cleaning people's feet. And that house was Scott Grimes' house in Critters. And it's right next to the same location as, so yeah, LA uses locations over and over again. We get there one morning and there's no Kevin. Where's Kevin? Where's Kevin Dillon? He was arrested last night for DWI. They've got a guy over there, they're gonna grab him, he's been in the tank all night. They take him straight from a holding cell to set. His 12 pages of dialogue, speeches out in front of the house. And Kevin Dillon comes through like a pro and delivers on this over and over. I asked him recently, he's like, oh yeah, that happened. But he was a pro, so worse circumstances and everything, he still came through. And I had so much respect for Kevin after that. I was like, man, he didn't even get any sleep, and he's just bringing it. And I got to die again. Me and Will Wheaton have worked together a couple of times. So we did the Tales from the Crypt. We did Python, 130 Feet of Terror. And we did Toy Soldiers. Now, Will dies in Toy Soldiers. I die in the Tales from the Crypt. Will dies in Python. So we figured out that if we work together again, I have to die. Yeah, I'm due to die next. But yeah, working on Tales was great because it was all of these friends of mine, bringing their guitars to set and jamming and stuff. And we're working with Bob Gale. That was the biggest thing. I brought my novelization of 1941. I had the comic, the graphic novelization, and I had Bob Gale sign it. I'm a fanboy too. For sure, full show.
Yeah, 21, you were before Richard Regan, right?
Yes, there was no Booker. I don't think Booker had been, he'd been on yet. Or he might have done one, and then they're like, oh, we'll bring him back or something. I don't remember how that happened, but I did do a movie with him. Cats Dancing on Jupiter, I think is what it's called. And I was just so stoked to be at the table reading. I'm like, oh my God, there's Booker. I call him Booker. That's all I call him is Booker. But they had so much advertising for Booker when it came out. It was kind of tough when you get saddled with that and then the show doesn't take off. You're like, kind of you get all the credit and you get all the blame. Yeah, but he's also a super nice guy. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for coming to the panel.
Would be me, right?
Right?
Have you ever, or would you ever write and direct your own?
Yes, I love writing, and I'd even written a Titanic spoof. And somebody paid me money for it to option for a little while, so they just encouraged me. And so I've written everything from TV pilot series to some features. short films. They'll take a lot of money to make these movies, apparently. I don't know, that was something I didn't know. Wow, it take millions of dollars to make a movie, really? So I went and I have a great short that I've written and went and got all the gear, bought the camera and everything ready to go. I just need a kind of hole in my schedule. But also I had a hole in my schedule and I didn't do it. So it's in fear, you're worried about it not coming out as good as you want. And so probably about 6 years I've been talking about this short film that I can show people what I can, you know.
Do it!
I was a precocious kid. And at 8 years old, I'd be on a set and I'd be like, don't put the camera there, you're gonna paint yourself into a corner. And I would actually start there and boom down. And well, who is this kid? And I remember I was on Chips and John Astin was directing. And it was the last episode of Chips, The Return of the Brat Patrol. The last episode of, and I once again, I go, well, really, they should have the cop cars parked that way. And then, you know, Ponch comes over here and John Astin goes, why don't you direct it? Now, John's a family friend. This isn't just some stranger director. I go, okay. And I absolutely blocked the scene and set them. So at like 12, I had directed a scene in Chips. And it was canceled immediately. All my fault.
No,
Good question, thank you.
There's
Yeah.
nowhere else good that they can do it.
Is there like a character or like that you recall that might have got you like in a scene where it's like it got you right in the feels, you know, where it hit personally?
Life 101 with Corey Haim. Yeah, so it's basically Lucas goes to college, and I had always had amazing respect for Haim and hadn't gotten a chance to get too close to him socially in LA, though I tried. I was friends with the Zappas, and their daughter, their niece Lala was dating Corey. And so I heard, oh, they're going to be at Johnny Rockets. I was so excited to go and meet Corey Haim. And I'm at the end of the counter, and he's at the far end in a trench coat, like facing this way, not talking. I'm never going to get a chance. And I get this movie and go and become very close with Haim. And I'm the dorm sage, kind of telling him, you know, you're being an idiot, teaching him about life. And I have a few years on Corey. And had already been working in town when I auditioned for Lucas and didn't get it. And he was just like a brother, and also we're both really good friends with Corey Feldman. We got to Maryland when we landed in the plane. We get to the hotel, and the first thing Haim does is call Feldman. Hey, I'm here, you never guess who I'm with Coogan, da-da-da-da. And so there'll be times during it that I'm talking to Haim, but the dialogue is the nature that I can be me talking to Haim rather than my character talking. And oftentimes you'll find that there will be dialogue that is true. You're late, again. And if that actor's always late, you get to be truthful when you go, you're late, again. You know, you don't have to act at all. And that's one of my styles is that I always like to hook into the other actors. I need to know them personally. How else am I going to push their buttons on camera? How else, when I'm off camera, I can say something that get their eyes light up, they get mad or something. I'd be canceled immediately. Thank God they didn't have video cameras in the 90s, or phones, or anything like that. Yeah, I got away with everything. Yeah, that I think that, and that's also mostly in retrospect, having lost him now, that I remember that was pretty special to be able to work with him that way. Earlier, I did a lot of dramas when I was really young. I couldn't get arrested in comedy, and it wasn't until I did Laverne and Shirley, and then I started to do more comedy on TV. So I had a lot of really heavy, Battered with Mike Farrell and Karen Grassel about domestic violence. A Question of Love with Jenna Rollins, Jane Alexander, and Clue Gulager about lesbians getting sued by the dad to take custody of the child. This was in the 70s as like a ABC movie of the week. So early on I was thrust in with these political, Mike Farrell's very political. And I'm like, oh, the adults in the industry are pretty crazy. And so there was a lot of crying as a kid. And if that day you're just into, you know, ET's coming out or something, you're just distracted, you get the glycerin, they have a little menthol thing that can spray in your eyes and make you cry. I had tons of fake tears, a couple of real ones.
And the most fun you ever had, like, was there an after party that you went to or something really cool that the crew did that you had fun doing? Tell us about all the fun you had.
It's interesting because people ask me what's your favorite movie and or favorite movie to work on, and it always is tied between Cousins and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead was truly fun, and it was
My
a
mom loves that
big.
movie.
Oh, thank you.
My mom loves Cousins.
Cousins was very special. With Joel Schumacher, a cast that I admired every single other cast member in there. I totally had a dad crush on Billy Peterson. I just hung out with William Peterson all the time. And Ted was very shy. Ted Danson is incredibly shy. We got to fly out with him, and I'm like, I gotta be his son. By the way, the reason I got cast in Cousins, the producers later, they go, you know why you got cast in this? And we're in the middle of shooting. I go, no. And they go, well, you weren't the best for the part. Oh, great.
Thank you.
That's great to hear. How did I cast? They said you made Ted better when you met with him. So they mixed and matched other kids, and they're like, Ted Danson was better in the scene with you. So that's, but my career has been a supporting actor, a character actor. A couple of times to take the lead, like Cheetah. Ooh, that was a big hit. So Cousins also had the best release. So instead of going a press tour around the whole country like we do with Adventures of Babysitting or Toy Soldiers, Adventures of Babysitting, we did 11 cities in 9 days to promote it. We just invited every outlet across the country to Vancouver for a 3-day weekend of banquets and recreating the wedding and funeral thing, because the movie has 3 weddings and a funeral. Shot 5 years before 40 weddings and a funeral, and we recreated the family experience, because they would cast 50 extras to be on the Italian side, then they cast 50 extras to be on the Polish side, so the Kaczynskis versus the Kaczynskis versus the other family, and they said, your family, and when the camera's not running, hang out, drink, do whatever, and so they would get these fights between the two families whenever they came together. And so, since it was shot in Vancouver, we were able to bring back all the cast that were every little bit, and bring them to the premiere and the screening. And I got into an elevator to go downstairs to one of the events, and in comes Lloyd Bridges with Mama, his wife. And behind them are his 2 boys, Jeff and Bo. They get into the elevator like this, behind their dad. Right behind him, not saying a word. Just respect. And the power of this is the Lloyd Bridges. And he's also so funny, and he'd already done the Hot Shots. And he'd already done Hot Shots. Maybe he hadn't done Airplane yet, but he'd already made fun of himself. So Cousins all the way to the release turned into just this 3-day love fest weekend. We had so much fun doing it. Yeah.
So my question is, since I got the Fox and Hound video, classic.
And I have not signed that yet.
Oh, don't worry.
That's troubling.
But also, so my question is, in a Fox and a Hound, if you get to meet the other actors, like Kurt Russell plays the adult Todd, and then the guy who plays Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is Zane Slade. You get to meet any other actors during the film for the Fox and a Hound?
Unfortunately, no. I never got to meet Jack Albertson, June Foray, Pat Buttram. Some of the voices in there are ridiculous. The great voice actors in there. Disney, I recorded it at the same mic that every Disney voice has been recorded at. There's one room that they do all of them, and you're in there alone. Now they've made exceptions. Beauty and the Beast, they had exceptional chemistry, and they said we should record them together. And then Aladdin, they said Robin improvises too much. If he is in a scene with a stall owner, call the actor in so that they can improvise. So anytime Robin Williams is in a scene with somebody, they would actually call them in and record it post so they could improvising. I think Feldman has mentioned that, and my recollection is a little different than his. I'm just a year or 2 older, but yes, just passing in the hall because we're in school. You have to do 3 hours of school a day and then go, do your voice. And he mentioned just seeing, oh, there goes Keith passing in the hall. But Corey forgets that I was a hand model for him on a Mattel commercial, so we'd already worked together. Then he forgets Kid with the Broken Halo, because I'd done the whole thing and he had like a 2-day bit on it. And I'm like, you know, we've worked together like 5 times and he just doesn't remember any of them. So on Disney there's a studio ABC, and like A is where the voices are recorded. They have a Foley stage to do the footsteps and all that, and then they have a screening mixing room. And this little 3-building complex right in the middle of Disney Studios is where the voices are recorded. It's edited and then mixed and screened for the first time for cast and crew screenings in the same building. And I had screenings for Fox and the Hound, Adventures in Babysitting, In the Army Now, Cheetah, all in this same theater. It's a neat thing that Disney does.
Wow.
Yeah. And then one time I was like doing voices and I look over and they're doing the sound mix for Running Man. Schwarzenegger, Running Man. And because it doesn't have to be a Disney picture, it's so you just hire it out and mix it. And so I'm leaning in and I'm hearing them mix. I'll break your neck like a chicken's. They're about to get on the helicopter, like it's the first time they try to sneak out of the city, and just over and over, I'll break your neck like a chicken's. I'll break your neck like a chicken's. And like, try it higher, try it lower. So it was funny to see them mix another movie in there. And we had a huge, because Don Bluth left production in the middle of Fox and the Hound and took half of the animators with him, he's uncredited. It also stalled production. Disney had to hire animators, train them, and then finish the movie. So it was supposed to come out in Christmas of '80, and it wound up coming out in '81. So during the stall, and I think it was Glenn Keane who did the bear sequence, we showed the movie, but it wasn't done. And what mostly wasn't done was the bear sequence and the waterfall, because Glenn says, I want to do it in charcoal. They said, what? He goes, I want the whole sequence to be done in charcoal. Really amazing effect, and Disney goes, we don't have the time, we don't have the budget. But I saw one temp screening that had just stills of these charcoals, of the impression of it. And then the final sequence, the bear in Fox and Hound is truly one of the most terrifying Disney villains.
I see that. It was really good. Fox. Todd has to fight the bear just to save his girlfriend.
You got the hunter going after them, the bear, and then the fires destroying the forest. It's a big ending.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good one to see. I mean, like I was going to say, one of your favorite moments on the scene, like the Fox and the Hound?
Well, the very end, when Vixie and Todd are looking down and knowing that they can never be friends again, and you hear the voiceover, we'll always be friends forever. Gets me every time. Because they're kids and they can't control it. Worse, anthropomorphize animals and do it to them. That's even worse. So, yeah. And I love seeing the Loungefly gear, backpacks, purses with Fox and the Hound. Disney did some nice stuff in their boutiques at the parks. They had a nice, Fox, cutoffs and t-shirts, and they'll do fine art stuff on it. I really love that it is the last of the classically animated films. It was belatedly added to the Black Diamond. It wasn't in the original run, and cut off in Aristocats. And then they decided to include it because it did have the last of the original old men that did Snow White and Pinocchio. And then they were handing it off to these new guys, Tim Burton, John Lasseter, Brad Bird, these new kids. They all went to become head of Pixar. So yeah, Fox and the Hound is both the old and the new, and you can see it in the art style. You can see during the movie, you can see it kind of being handed off to the new generation. Yeah, very proud of Fox.
I love that. So, you haven't seen that, you ever watched the Fox and the Hound 2?
They didn't call me for that. I was 18. I think they got Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I have not seen that. No, I have not seen that. So it's a midquel, and I understand that Hound is going to join a Hound band, and the stakes aren't there for me. I need shotguns in your face. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, nobody really, see movies, but you see movies, you want to feel good after the movie, but most movies have a good conflict and, you know, some scary parts and stuff like that. And so you come out the other end, yeah.
Why did you start this career? Why did you start? And what's the main people that you have been done to keep on the career?
Great. I do have hearing aids. Can you repeat that?
What made you start your career?
Oh, yeah.
And then who are some of the people who,
What's the main people?
oh, the main pivot? That in his career? Oh, so the main, yeah, so the first one was
Why did you start?
why I started, and then the second one, the main pivot, that
To stay in the career.
to stay in the career. Oh, I got you, staying in the career.
Yeah. So, even though my family was in the business, I didn't know this at 4 years old. When I'm watching Sesame Street, Electric Company, Via Alegre, Zoom, Muppet Show, anytime I see a kid on, you know, like, well, those kids look very fun. I want to be on Sesame Street. So, in front of my mom, I go, I want to be on TV. She goes, okay, well, there's training and you study and you're going to have to do commercials. And then I go, that sounds like way too much work. I'm not interested. And about 6 months later, she says, a commercial was on and I jumped in the living room and did the song, whatever it was, because she told me, you're going to have to learn to sing and dance. I'm like, not interested. So about 6 months later at 5, I come in and I'm very demonstrative. I'm ready to do it. I want to be on TV. And she just rolls her eyes. She's like, this again. Her father had been through a lot in his life and his career. And she was very aware that it could chew you up. So what's great is I had a very wise mother who stayed with me every minute of every day and, you know, never let me off alone with anybody or anything like that. She's very protective. And she's also not a stage mom. She didn't care. And she would rather I go to the beach or go do my homework and play with my friends. This is not important to her. There's other ways to make money. But if you're gonna do it as a career, study, learn from the people you're working with. And the career about it was that you could make this a career without that big break. Like a lot of people, they try and they get a big break and then it takes off. But what if you just start as an extra and then a background artist and then a stand-in and then you're in the commercial and then you do 10 and then you do a Chips. You're not really supposed to have a speaking role, but you steal the scene and you start mugging and they start giving the other kids lines to you because you're just cracking all the adults up. I had no fear on the set. And I played mouthy kids, I played bratty kids a lot. Jeffrey on the Waltons is a good example. I burned the barn on the Waltons, let's just put it that way. So it was, and you were balancing schoolwork and friends and life as well. As soon as you see there's other kids doing it, and you see that they take it this seriously or that seriously, and as soon as there's a job you really want that you don't get, that you lose out to another kid because he learned the lines better or worked harder on it or whatever, so it becomes a work ethic issue, and it becomes, what does it take to book these things? Learning your lines? No. Learning the lines, studying the things, studying the directors, studying the writers, what their past films were, what their tone was. Who else is up for this? Who might I be working with? Who are there changes? I walked into Hiding Out and I said, kids don't talk like this. What? This is the screen test for Hiding Out? By the way, the writer's in the room, and I'm like, oh God, I forget. I didn't know the writer was one of the producers. And I'm like, no, kids don't talk like this. This is very, like, we should kind of work on the dialogue a little bit. And they went, okay, and they hired me, and they actually had, I had 17 to have input into something like that. Usually doesn't happen. So I found that it was a one place where a kid could get paid the same as an adult, right? And that's thanks to, like, Macaulay Culkin. If it wasn't for Home Alone, there's no way kids would be demanding these big dollars. Usually they're an afterthought, a prop in the plot line or something like that. A kid to be held hostage. But great actors like Jodie Foster and Ricky Schroeder, they showed us that they could take heavy material and they could cry and stuff. I'm like, good, they do that. I'm gonna be the fun ones and go on Knight Rider and Love Boat and everything. So yeah, when it turns into the career, then it becomes about what not to do. It really is, because my mom wants me to work for Disney for the rest of my life, and she goes, you're not doing Friday the 13th Part 4. Because you'll never work for Disney again. And I'm like, okay. So kept my nose clean and worked on program material or whatever, just to kind of keep that channel open for working for Disney. And I've done 5 projects for them. An animated movie, a television series, Gunshy, the Apple Dumpling Gang series, by the way. In the Army now, Adventures in Babysitting, Cheetah, and Spooner with Bob Urich, which was a Disney Sunday movie. So six projects with Disney. They're one of my biggest employers. I love them. So the plan worked out. You know, it is a career, and it can go, you know, up or down. But if you stay in it, then at one point I was getting 1 out of every 6 parts I went out for, which is unheard of. But if you look at the resume between certain years, you're like, you did. I just worked a lot. And that was fun. I have English test coming up I didn't want to do. I hope to God I booked that Fantasy Island. That would be great. And you do. Sometimes you do, and you're like, I don't have to take that test.
But the fantasy came true.
That's what your fantasy game producer said.
Totally.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that your mom made you go to public school.
Yes.
All the other kids.
Well, we were broke. We were living on welfare.
Okay.
I had Salvation Army toys. And so when I started acting, we lived in a tennis change room of a house in Malibu. My mom wanted me to be near the beach for the ocean and the thing, and it's nicer and stuff than living in the valley or the city where it's cheaper. She saw a 1-bedroom in the valley for $250 a month. This is in 1976 or something. And then she saw a tennis change room with no kitchen, just a bathroom and a room for the same amount. We could live at the beach in the Colony next to Burgess Meredith and Larry Hagman. And we're broke, but we're living at the beach. And so as I started working, then we moved to a converted porch. It was a house where they took the outside porch and drywalled it in. This was, step up. And then a 1-bedroom apartment over near the Malibu Pier, over the toy store. That was really cool. And I did the Waltons and bought a house at 10.
Because you got paid the same amount.
A 5-bedroom house in Malibu. But we started in the tennis change room, and neither of my parents worked. So I was very lucky to, and also get my money when I came of age and stuff like that. My grandfather made the law, so it's be tough. My mom was the closest watched mother in the history of movie business. You keep watching this kid. Did you imagine the headline, Jackie Coogan's daughter steals from Jackie Coogan's grandson? Not a good look.
Is it tougher as an actor in front of a green screen or to voice over something that's not yours?
I don't know, I haven't done a lot of that stuff. Most green screen stuff has been like a newscaster thing where, it would be in front of a green screen anyway. So the closest is on Adventures in Babysitting, we did Intravision, which is front projection. They used it in The Fugitive for the bus crash, the train sequence in Stand By Me. Outland, almost the entire movie with Sean Connery was shot with this. It's front projection. 2001: A Space Odyssey, the ape sequence was shot with this. So it's a huge reflective screen that, the camera is the projector. They've got a 45-degree angle plate of glass that the projector is shooting the background plate at you. It's a Mylar reflector thing that picks up and shoots it right back into the lens. And your body and your clothes absorb it and it doesn't reflect. So in camera, you have a matte line-free, no chroma key, no blue screen, in camera, and in dailies, you're ready to cut that in the picture and have no effects. That's why I mentioned Babysitting was quick. 3 months from finishing it to releasing it. So I haven't had that, but I do have a practical joke I want to do, is hire actors and say we're doing a green screen movie, there's creatures and everything, and then don't do any of it and release the movie of them just going, and then let the audience do their own effects and their own backgrounds and say, it's a Western now. No, it was in space. No, it's a Western now. So I wanted to do a practical joke on actors and film a bunch of blue screen stuff or green screen stuff and then don't do it and just release it as it is. I like anti-comedy, anti-humor. I like Andy Kaufman. I like, long jokes, long practical jokes. Yes?
You worked with Christina Applegate.
Yes.
And my question was, at the time, were you aware that she had acted in Married with Children? Or?
She was a dear friend. So part of hanging out with like the Zappas up in the Hollywood Hills is they're like, oh, here's Donovan Leitch and Ione Skye and oh, meet so-and-so. And so I met Mila Jovovich and Christina, they all went to school together. They went, all of the other kid actors went to a school called Excelsior in Hollywood that it's self-guided, there's no supervision, you can come and go because their parents often travel or their kids that are working. So Scott Grimes, Christina Applegate, a bunch of other kids went to this one private school. So I'm hanging out with Scott Grimes, and there's Christina. And we'd see her at also Youth and Film Awards, other events, and Christina would dance, and Corey Feldman would get up and sing, and it was just perfect 80s moments. So I was already dear friends with Christina, been over to her house and everything, and when we got this, there was no getting to know each other. There's no, it's just, what's the scene today? Okay, where's the jokes? Okay, you're gonna do a 2B, all right, I'm gonna do a 3A here. We're just talking comedy terms of like, how do we pull this scene off? Great, see you on set. She did turn me on to Faith No More. She gave me a record, and I was like, that's some good stuff. I didn't really, you know, when I was rapping Toy Soldiers, George Perez comes and goes, so this will be great, afterwards we'll hang out in LA, and I go, no, we won't. He goes, that's kind of a dickish thing to say, and I go, well, it's true, you're gonna get another movie, I'm gonna get another movie, and our schedules are that, how do you know, you really don't get a chance. It's on set that you get to create really close relationships. We're all family, really family. You eat, drink, and sleep and breathe with these people and fight. But outside of it, it's pretty competitive. It's tough to be friends with anybody else that might take my part. So you either be friends with really untalented people, so that and you encourage them, you're great, man, you're doing good. Yeah. Oh, no, man. Actors are terrible people. What is it? Actors are a bottomless pit of need. I think that's what Amy Pascal said, yeah.
You might have answered this already, but when you were voicing Todd, what was the process like? Did you get to look at the animation?
No,
or okay,
no.
so just...
They did bring us in front of the animators, and I think they resemble us to a bit. No, the assistant director who you read your lines with had been doing the voice of Goofy. I could do it. And so if we're flagging, or it's a little tired, or it's the end of the day, you're like, oh, we're gonna do one more. And, oh, it's Goofy, you know, it just gets so excited as an 8-year-old. What they did though is they recorded bits of us and then animated. Called us back 6 months later, record the next scene. They wanted the Fox and Hound to age up a little bit in the first half of the movie. Because we spent a little time with them, so they wanted us to kind of age up. So it was probably 5 or 6 sessions over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, going back into Disney, doing another scene, they'd rewrite stuff. Because in the original, the Hound Chief dies, gets hit by the train off the train tracks or whatever, and he dies. And this is why Copper wants to get Todd. It works in the movie still, and some people have believed that they remember someone dying in Fox and Hound. I'm like, nobody dies.
Really? So did they do like basically where first it looks like he dies and then they rewrite it and nobody knows unless they've watched it before? Because they've done that like in various other movies.
Yeah, they did it in Lady and the Tramp, and they go just showing rehabilitating with us. You know, the wagon fell over and crushed and killed the dog in Lady and the Tramp, and they're like, just show a scene where he's okay after, and the kids will be fine. They did the same thing with Chief. They showed him groaning and moaning with a little brace on his leg, just so that audiences knew that he lived through
I
that.
think I remember seeing him die. I was like, I don't want to watch the Fox.
I know, it's in the book, and I think it's just so traumatic that, and also when you're watching a movie, at the time, he did. You know, until a few minutes later you see that he's lived. So there is a moment where we're experiencing, like in Fake Outs and Alien and stuff like that, there's still moments where I'm watching the movie remembering how misled I was during the movie, like the cat scare with Jonesy. I'm like, now I watch Alien and I'm like, I know it's a cat in the locker. But that first time watching it, I did not know it jumped right through the roof. Yeah, I do remember the woodpecker stuff and with the inchworm worms for breakfast. It was very like, I didn't know what was going on. And they'd have to be like, there's these birds that come down and talk. I'm like, okay, birds, talk to me. You know, and you're like dealing with a fox and a badger and a this. And I'm like, okay, just go with it. Trust Disney.
Okay, my son had a question about
Oh, yeah.
If you had.
Yes, Garrett.
Okay, because the movies are on Disney, do you get royalties for that?
I do, and I want to thank everybody who turned to streamers during pandemic for solace, because it doubled my residuals during pandemic. No, and every actor in town, because so many people were stuck at home. You can't go to work, you can't leave the house. All they did was binge, and oftentimes they went for comfort food. Tends to be Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Breakfast Club, and a little babysitting in there. And so yeah, people had turned as comfort food, and also streamers were really growing during pandemic and adding Peacock and this and that, and so I started to see relicensing of some of the older work and stuff like that go up too. Love Boat showed up on Paramount. And people are like, oh, watching a Love Boat, and I'm like, I've never been able to see, you never could have streamed Love Boat. There was no legal way to stream Love Boat. So it's really neat. Now I'm starting to see some of the older work kind of come back. Residuals are great. Now, keep in mind what a residual is, okay? Say you have a blueberry muffin, and you drop it on the ground. And then you pick it up. You know that greasy stain and crumb on the floor? That's a residual of the muffin. Screen Actors Guild actors pool 6%. So if the producer relicenses something for $100, every actor in that project has to split $6. And that's why it helps to have done 84 different projects. It does, that helps. And some of those are multiple, like Walton's is like 18 episodes and stuff like that. So it's nice, and you get them quarterly. Like every quarter, Warner Brothers has to reconcile and go, here's your Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead check. I mean, you can't live on it, but it's nice, and I am incredibly grateful for it, because not everybody has that. Not everybody has a bit of income coming to them from work they did when they were single digits. And I'm grateful to everyone who fought for that in LA. Anyone who worked before 1971 on TV, they don't get residuals. And I did all my work after that break date, so I get paid for every single thing I did every time it's aired. Yeah, I mean pennies, but it adds up. Yeah.
You think Kenny ever got his act together? Really went to culinary school?
Of course he did. Oh, of course he did. He probably married Nicole. Hey, Nicole. What's up? Absolutely. He runs an edible baking weed store. Totally. And delivery too. Dude, beautiful Belgian waffles made of kind. He was half Spicoli and half Bill and Ted, right?
I love it.
Oh, I was totally. Now I lived next door to a guy named Fro Gardner in Malibu. Fro was the inspiration for Sean Penn. Fro wore t-shirts on his head.
Oh my.
Yeah, and talked like that. He had the curly hair, everything. I lived next door to the real Spicoli. So when I pulled from Sean Penn's version to become Kenny, I'm pulling from his version of a neighbor I used to have that I knew. Very, very weird stuff. And then Bill and Ted, the director, Steve Herrick, had directed Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And what's funny with Bill and Ted is they're not stoners. They're dumb, they're surfers, they don't ever smoke weed, you never see them have a bong. It's implied that Bill and Ted have evaporated their brain cells from that reason. So it was interesting to play a character. They were like, Warner Brothers? Warner Brothers ain't Disney. So I was like, I knew there was language in it. It's funny that I actually would recommend, if you have children, to watch Don't Tell Mom before Adventures in Babysitting. Adventures in Babysitting has worse language. But Don't Tell Mom seems like a funnier, more innocent movie, even though it's got some language in it too.
They censored you on Disney. They took all that out on the Disney network.
Yes, they did.
So,
Yes, and which made everyone get really angry and go to Amazon and buy the DVD.
what a shame. Okay.
Bedroom singing, it's all gone. Don't Tell Mom?
No, Adventures of Babysitting is edited on Disney Plus. Yeah, Don't Tell Mom, we pre-edited. There are many bits in Don't Tell Mom where we're looping over, like, you lazy little punk. Well, she said prick on the set, but to get the PG-13, we pre-lubed, covered it, and just before even getting notes and having, so it's almost TV friendly anyway. But yeah, you record for TV, they send you a little cassette note. Could you say hobo? I got from Adventures of Babysitting. Oh, you're gonna be Thor's a hobo? Nah, I'm good, and I refuse to record a TV coverage of that. So in the original TV run of Adventures of Babysitting, it would be Thor's a hobo. Thor's a complete hobo, because another person was doing the voice. It's funny, David Simpkins is concerned with that line, and he goes, yeah, that's one regret he has. He wouldn't have had the Thor's a homo line. And we're dealing with like Monster Squad time where, it was different. However, Brad is being bad at that point. He's trying to purposely say something that would get his sister mad, okay? And what better thing, so today or then, it's still inappropriate to say, but it's something that Brad knew was inappropriate to say. So I leaned into it, and I would never put something online or offer autographs or anything for them. But goddamn, if I don't get asked to autograph shows, hey, do you mind? Would you write Thor's a homo? Absolutely, I will totally do that. And of course, embraced by the gay community. I went to a screening at the Castro Theater in San Francisco, and we were selling a lot of shirts and stuff like that. And every other person was like, "Can you do Thor's a homo?" And we're asking, "Is the gay community cool with? We freaking love it." I was like, "Okay, it's on." I don't know. I had to check. Oh, there was a question in the back we skipped, yes.
What's one of your favorite memories from behind the scenes? Like,
We want to know about those parties again. Come on. You're leaving stuff out and we know it. We're just going to keep
My favorite
asking.
memory was going to a New Kids on the Block release party with my date, Mila Jovovich. That was a good one. But it was innocent. We were young. She's 14. We didn't even do it yet. No, I drove her to Toys R Us. I dated Drew Barrymore for a week, and there's a great picture online of me in head-to-toe acid wash denim with Drew at a premiere. That's about as 80s as you could get right there. Yeah, running from theater to theater with Chris Columbus and Elizabeth Shue to see how audiences are reacting. We're in a limo in LA running around on opening night. That was fun. Yeah, that was a good one. Getting to be in Cousins with Sean Young, and then Don't Tell On the Babysitter's Dead with Joanna Cassidy. I'm getting closer and closer to my Blade Runner, working with everybody that I can. I met Joe Turkel, and just gotta work with Harrison Ford, that's all. Just gotta work with Harrison Ford.
Han Solo.
Yeah, right. I have the, back at my table, my leather jacket is the costume, the Han Solo Force Awakens jacket. Pinky got me that for me. And then my other long coat is Agent K's jacket from Blade Runner. So yeah, I'm a nerd, I'm a movie nerd. I had those posters, Raiders, Star Wars and stuff all over my room.
I did Indiana Jones. You guys got to get Indiana Jones 5 coming out.
Yeah. My favorite movies go Jaws, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, other things.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars is great.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Oh yeah, all about the Star Wars. It's funny, my parents go to see it, I'm 8, and they come home. I was the last kid in the world to see Star Wars. And the parents come home, we're in Palm Springs, and they go, oh, it's great, oh yeah, and they went to go see it. And I'm like, what's this Star Wars? And they go, oh, it's got robots and lasers and spaceships, and I went, you didn't freaking take me! Then I went to my birthday of 78. I was the last child to see Star Wars. Yes.
Oh, it's funny to ask, can you tell us some crazy stories of you maybe hanging out on set with Polly and doing some funny things?
Polly, sure.
Yes, sir.
Polly was a friend, yes. I took in Second City with Andy Dick in the early Santa Monica days. Then there was another iteration of Andy was a friend of Anthony Rapp's, and I met Andy Dick through Anthony Rapp. We would have poker games. Andras Jones from Nightmare on Elm Street, and who had also done a movie with Drew Barrymore. Anyway, it was very like everyone, oh, you're doing a movie with so-and-so, oh, now you're doing a movie. It was a little like community of like 40 kind of child actors just to kind of talk, to each other. ADHD, what was the question?
Like funny Pauly Shore moments with you and.
So Pauly, I stage managed his father's one-man show. Sammy Shore had a one-man show. And I'm a theater nerd, so I've teched and stage managed and set tech and all that stuff. Sound, lights, total theater nerd. So Pauly is amazing and incredibly hardworking. We were talking to him time before his mom, before Mitzi passed. And this was rough on him, definitely, but he's such a survivor and just keeps making specials, keeps pick up a camera, go on the road. He dealt with a lot of that stuff on camera with his mom passing and stuff like that. And I'd done Toy Soldiers, and I'm at my house and I get a call from Dan Petrie Jr., the director of Toy Soldiers, and he's in the middle of shooting in the Army now, and he's trying to come up with an ending. And one day on set he goes, I got it, but I need extra people. I need people that look like Andy Dick and Pauly Shore to come in at the end credits and go back into the volunteer place for the military and like recreate the beating scene. Just loop back. And I got a call at 9 o'clock at night. Can you be on set out in the desert, whatever, at 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. And my buddy, Matt Walker, was the other, so I'm stoner number 2. And I'm in a Pauly Shore wig, and my buddy Matt is in an Andy Dick wig. And we basically go in, and I'd already done Kenny, so it was like a weird blend of that and that. And so I wound up working with Pauly on that. But also he was an MTV VJ for Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey premiere at the Chinese Theater. And so I did some on-camera stuff with him there. I remember that premiere. And I wound up doing Beach MTV for a little bit, but yeah, I'll see Pauly from time to time around town at events and stuff like that, for sure. I have never exercised it, but apparently I can get into the Comedy Store anytime I want, but I've never pulled that. I just line up and pay and see Pauly in the corner. Hey, Pauly, dude, I could get you in. Don't worry about it. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's definitely a good guy. He's been through a lot, but he's still very funny and creative, and Andy Dick needs support and help. Sorry. We love Andy, but he's going up and down, up and down, up and down. We want you up, Andy. Yeah?
Tell us about Super Train.
Super Train, oh my God, thank you. So Super Train 1978, who is it? The head of NBC, the Golden Touch, he touched wrong. So Super Train was a 2-story nuclear train that can go from LA to New York to Chicago in 32 hours. And if you do the math, that's not that fast of a train. Dick Van Dyke was in the episode with Larry Linville. And I think me and Rachel Jacobs, her brother Christian Jacobs is the lead singer of the Aquabats. But me and Rachel often played brother and sister together, like in Kid with Broken Halo. So, no, Rachel was Corey Feldman's sister. Tammy Lauren was my sister in that. Anyway, you wind up working with kids that are like, oh, I'm your brother now I'm your sister, now I'm the antagonist. What was the question again?
Just tell us about Super Train.
Oh, Super Train. So they have this set on the Sony lot, the MGM. They have the biggest sound stage in Hollywood, Stage 15. They have a life-size version of Grand Central Station. The train has a pool, a beauty parlor, a disco, gun range, whatever. It's like the big bus, but done with the train. They spent $10 million on this show. They spent half of it on the sets. The thing tanked and it almost bankrupted NBC. But I was 8 or 9 years old. I cannot be held to blame. Then I'll never forget that huge budgeted show. 5 minutes. Oh, I'm not done yet. Come on, just keep asking me questions. Thank you. Thank you, 5, for the theater nerds here.
Okay.
Yeah. What's up, Dad?
Hey, a couple years back, you did a pretty awesome comedy show. And I am
That works, see, whatever.
curious what it was like, preparing for that and getting ready for that and then performing that. We got to see it and it was great.
Well, thank you, Dad. You always want to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation as an actor. I don't feel feel real comfortable right now. And you learn and you grow, and you either like a skill or you don't. You go, I can work on that later or whatever. And, wow. Yeah. What was it again?
Oh, the question. Yeah, so I was just wondering, what it was like coming up with the material, preparing for that.
So it was Virgin Sacrifice, and this is at West Side Comedy in LA, which is back behind 3rd Street, promenade in the alley, behind the dumpster, ask for Bruce. It's like a White Snake basement comedy store, 75 seats, maybe tops. But they go, you had to have never done stand-up before, and you have to write your own act. You can't take the jokes off the internet or something like that. I'm like, I'm down. And it was one of the things I did. My mom did stand-up. I wrote stand-up. Me and my mom used to write jokes for Leto, Letterman, and Dennis Miller. We had a fax line. We'd, call each other 6 o'clock in the morning, go over the paper, watch on the news, and we'd start writing jokes. And then we fax them in. And Dennis Miller, Letterman and Leno paid $50 a joke. Dennis Miller paid $75 a joke. And my mom was also a stand-up. Kind of Argus Hamilton years, 80s, 86-ish, 87, where women weren't funny. Back then, there weren't a lot of women doing it. And she had a pretty caustic act. It was really good act. Anyways, we would write comedy. And we got a job to write for John Wayne Bobbitt.
Oh, wow.
They said, could you write an act for him, train him how to do comedy, and get him up? So we wrote the Sleeping on Your Stomach tour. Trained him and put him up and sent him out on a tour. Wayne Bobbitt spent the night at my house. There was one time where I was at a friend of mine's band, and I'm there with Corey Haim and John Wayne Bobbitt. That was a weird 90s moment. Yeah, the 90s were way weirder than the 80s.
Did you ever meet Mitzi?
Who?
Mitzi Shore? Did you ever meet her?
Who?
Mitzi Shore, Holly's mom?
Oh, yeah, but no. Not, no, I didn't hang out or anything like that. Yeah, I was a very big nerdy geek, so there was no, comic habits, if you will. That, the store and the house behind it was all about that for many, many years, and I just wasn't into that. So with the stand-up, I start with myself, and how do you build an act out of that? How do you know what's going to resonate? Well, it's great when you load the house with your friends and your family and your mom and your wife and everything. So you stack the house, prepare, throw the whole thing out, rewrite a whole new. My favorite joke from that, from my stand-up is, I used to be cagey when I get recognized. You look familiar. Wait, are you on? I do some TV and movies or something. They go. So finally, Pinky's just tell them. Just tell them. Don't string them along. So finally, this one girl goes, "Oh, you look familiar." And I go, "Well, I did star as Brad in Adventures in Babysitting." And she goes, "No, Keith, we went to Salmo High together. We were in band." So that's coming at the act from that point of view. I'm one of you, because I'm a fanboy that just happened to do this for a living and like to do it, and know how to. I learned tricks. I have a bag of tricks. I learned them when I fight with an actor on a set over a comic bit. I inevitably say this. I go, "Look, I learned my comic timing from my grandfather, and he learned it from Chaplin. Let's try it my way." It's dickish to say, but I'm like, this is the thing. It's like I really did. I picked up all that stuff from them. And I really do want to play Fester. Shoot him in the back! Morticia! Oh, Pugsley. I gotta really shave my head and do like a Stark Lighting audition tape for Tim Burton, right? Get on the Wednesday series? Yeah, probably. Anyway, that is, listen, I want to thank everybody. Great questions. Thank you for coming. It's a lot fuller now. That's not for me, obviously. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for the questions. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for coming to the panel. Rock and roll!